The year is 476 AD. The sky over the Iberian Peninsula is tinged with a sickly red, as if the gods themselves were bleeding after the fall of the last Western Roman emperor. The legions that for centuries upheld order with the point of their gladius no longer march. The aqueducts still carry water, but no one knows for how much longer. The Roman roads are still there, but now strange boots tread upon them. Tall men with blonde hair, eyes like northern ice, long swords slung across their backs, and an ancient hunger gleaming in their gaze. Hispania, the western jewel of the empire, has ceased to be Roman, but it is not yet Spain. Between these two realities lies an entire century of fire, blood, betrayals, forced conversions, kings assassinated in their own tents, and warriors who fought hand to hand under the shadow of crosses and pagan banners. In this abyss, two peoples were born who hated each other from their very first breath. The Suebi of the northwest and the Visigoths of the south. And from their brutal clash, from their broken alliances, from their heads mounted on pikes, and from their improvised cathedrals built with Roman stones, something new emerged. Something the world had never seen. The embryo of a nation. Today you are going to witness the true story of the birth of Spain. Not the sanitized version from school textbooks, but the raw version. That of warriors who did not fear dying because death was an old companion. Stay until the end because what you are going to hear will forever change the way you see this land. Before we continue, if you are passionate about history told the way it should be told, with blood, with honor, and without filters, subscribe right now to this channel. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single chapter of this epic saga. And if you want to directly support this work and access exclusive content for members, consider joining the channel by clicking the join button below. Your support is what keeps this flame alive. Now then, come back with me to the 5th century, where it all began. Let us return to the Suebi. These men arrived in Hispania long before the official fall of Rome. It was in the year 409, almost 70 years before the final collapse, when they crossed the Pyrenees alongside other barbarian peoples, fleeing the hunger of the Huns and the very Germanic pressure from the east. They were a warrior people originating from the regions we know today as Bavaria and the current Czech Republic. Short men, but broad-shouldered, accustomed to dense forests, experts in ambushes, fanatics of the hand axe, and round shields painted with runes that no Roman knew how to read. When they arrived in Gallaecia, present-day Galicia and northern Portugal, they found a paradise. Green mountains, rivers full of salmon, fertile valleys, and most importantly, a frightened Hispano-Roman population with no army to defend them. The Suebi did not need great battles. They came down from the mountains like a human tide. They occupied the villas abandoned by the nobles, sat in chairs that had belonged to senators, and proclaimed themselves lords of the land. Their first great king, Hermeric, established his capital in Braga, and from there he ruled with an iron fist over a kingdom that very few in the rest of the known world took seriously. But the Suebi knew something their enemies would take a long time to learn. They knew how to survive. The chronicles of the chronicler Hydatius, Bishop of Chaves, and a direct witness to those days, describe scenes that would freeze the blood of the modern reader. He speaks of entire villages burned to the ground in a single night, of peasants crucified at the doors of their own homes for refusing to hand over grain, of mothers who drowned their children in rivers before letting them fall alive into the hands of the invaders. But he also speaks of something more surprising. He speaks of mixed marriages, of blonde children with Roman mothers and Suebian fathers running through the streets of Braga, of Hispano-Roman peasants who learned to handle the axe alongside their new lords. The slow and painful fusion had already begun. Hermeric ruled for almost 30 years of consolidation, of southward expansion, of increasingly bold incursions into Lusitania, present-day central Portugal. His successor, Rechila, would push the Suebic kingdom to its greatest extent, coming to control Merida, Seville, and a large part of the Algarve. For a moment, the Suebic kingdom was the largest in all of Hispania, but the glory was brief, because on the other side of the Pyrenees, the shadow of a more powerful enemy was already stirring. For decades, they resisted everything. They resisted plagues, they resisted famines, they resisted the first Visigothic offensives. and they even resisted the religious confusion of those early times, fluctuating between the paganism of their ancestors, Roman Catholic Christianity, and later Arianism, a heresy that denied the full divinity of Christ, and that would be the axis of many wars to come. Meanwhile, on the other side of the Pyrenees, another, even more fearsome people was preparing to enter the scene, the Visigoths. If the Suebi were wolves, the Visigoths were bears. They were more numerous, more organized, more Romanized, and above all, more ambitious. They had sacked Rome itself in the year 410 under the command of the legendary Alaric. They had traversed all of Gaul and had founded a powerful kingdom with its capital in Tolosa, present-day Toulouse. They spoke a Germanic dialect, but many of their nobles perfectly understood Latin. They wore long tunics, cloaks with gold brooches, and carried swords, long, heavy spathas capable of splitting an oak shield in a single blow. Rome, in its final death throes, had signed treaties with them. It called them allies, federates, and used them to fight other barbarians. But everyone knew the truth. The Visigoths did not serve Rome. They were waiting for their turn, and when the empire definitively fell, that turn came. King Hermeric, around the year 475, already ruled an immense territory that included a large part of Gaul and almost all of Hispania. Only one corner resisted: the northwest, the Suebic Kingdom. Imagine the scene. A Visigothic messenger, dressed in scale armor and a helmet crowned with horsehair, arrives at the Suebian court of Braga. He hands over a parchment sealed with red wax. The Suebian king, seated on a carved wooden throne, reads it with a frown. The message is clear: submission or war, payment of tribute or death. The Suebian king spits on the ground. That same night, the messenger is sent back with the heads of his escort inside a sack. That was how these men spoke to one another. Thus began a war that would last more than 100 years. The first battles were skirmishes in the valleys of the Douro River. Small Suebian raiding parties would attack Visigothic advance guards and disappear into the fog. The Visigoths, accustomed to combat on open plains, suffered enormously. They fell into traps, were ambushed while crossing bridges, found their camps set ablaze at dawn, but the Visigoths were patient. They knew time was on their side. Every year they brought more settlers, more horsemen, more blacksmiths. Every year they fortified a new city. While the Suebi fought to survive, the Visigoths fought to build a kingdom that would last 1,000 years. And here enters one of the most fascinating characters in this whole story: the Suebian king, Remismund. A cunning man, not necessarily the bravest, but undoubtedly the most intelligent of his lineage. He understood that open war against the Visigoths was impossible to win, so he played another card: diplomacy. He sent embassies to the Visigoths asking for peace. He agreed to marry a Visigothic princess, sealing a matrimonial alliance. But at the same time, in secret, he sent emissaries to the Franks in the north, the Byzantines in the east, and the pagan tribes of Cantabria, begging for help against his new brothers-in-law. It was a dangerous game, a blindfolded dance with swords, and it almost worked for him. For several decades, thanks to these political maneuvers, the Suebic kingdom not only survived, but prospered. Coins were minted with the king's face, churches were built, and their own laws were drafted. The Suebi began to feel for the first time not like temporary invaders, but like the legitimate owners of the land. But the Visigoths did not forget. The Visigoths never forget. Allow me to pause for a moment so you can see these men with your own eyes. Imagine a Suebian warrior from that era. He stands about 1.7 meters tall, shoulders as broad as a mountain bull, blonde hair braided down his back, a thick beard flecked with ashes from the last fire. He wears a tunic of raw wool dyed dark blue, tied with a wide leather belt from which hang 3 knives of different sizes. Over his chest, a chainmail shirt inherited from his father, patched with bronze rings where the iron has broken. In his left hand, a round linden wood shield reinforced with an iron boss in the center, painted with red spirals. In his right hand, a short-handled axe, a Francisca, capable of piercing a helm in a single blow, and slung over his shoulder, a long ash spear with a laurel leaf-shaped point. Now imagine his Visigothic rival. Taller, almost 1.85 meters, light brown hair gathered in a low bun, a well-trimmed beard in the Roman style. He wears a white tunic with gold thread embroidery on the cuffs, a cloak of fine wool fastened with an eagle-shaped brooch, close-fitting leggings, and leather boots up to the knee. His armor is a cuirass of metal scales, each scale the size of a fingernail sewn onto a thick linen doublet. The helmet is a segmented piece with cheek guards and a neck protector. His sword, a long, straight, double-edged spatha capable of cutting a horse in half. The tall oval shield decorated with the equal-armed Aryan cross. These were the men who would meet face-to-face in the fields of Gallaecia. These were the men who wrote the first chapter of Spain in blood. Now stop for a moment and think. If this story is gripping you, if you feel the coldness of the steel and the smell of the smoke, let me know by leaving a like on this video. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. Every new subscriber gives me the strength to keep unearthing these forgotten tales. If you want to go a step further and become part of this community of real history lovers, become a channel member. You will get access to exclusive videos, extended content, and my eternal gratitude. Now get ready, because the bloodiest moment of the entire story is coming. The year 561. The Suebic Kingdom undergoes one of its greatest transformations. A humble man arrives in these lands, a monk named Martin, originally from Pannonia, a region near present-day Hungary. This Martin, who would go down in history as Martin of Braga or Martin of Dumio, will do something that seemed impossible. He will convert the entire Suebic kingdom from Arianism to Roman Catholicism, without wars, without massacres, solely with words, with patience, and with a holiness that moved even the most hardened warrior. King Theodomar, a son of paganism, will kneel before a wooden cross and be baptized, and with him, his court, his nobles, his people. For a moment, it seemed that the Suebic kingdom had found its place in the world, a prosperous Catholic kingdom at peace with its neighbors. But down south, in the Visigothic kingdom, things were very different. The Arian heresy still ruled there, and a king unlike any before him was about to emerge. A king who not only wanted to rule Hispania, he wanted to unify it. His name was Liuvigild, and his ascension to the throne in the year 568 would mark the beginning of the end for the Suebi. Liuvigild was no ordinary king. He was a brilliant military commander, a genius strategist, a ruthless politician, and to many, the true founder of the Visigothic state. He understood that a kingdom divided by languages, religions, and tribes was doomed. His dream was to forge a unity of iron, one crown, one law, one faith. And for that, all enemies had to fall. He began by pacifying the south, defeating the Byzantine garrisons that still held enclaves on the Mediterranean coast. Then he crushed the Cantabrian rebellions in the north. And finally, he set his sights on the last obstacle, the Suebic Kingdom. The year 583, Visigothic trumpets resound in the Minho valleys. More than 15,000 Visigothic warriors, armed with leather cuirasses, reinforced with iron plates, long spears, sharp swords, and oval shields, marched toward the northwest. At the head, riding a black horse, goes Liuvigild. His gaze is as cold as winter. The Suebian king at the time, Miro, knows he is doomed. Even so, he takes the field. The decisive battle takes place near Braga. The Suebi, inferior in numbers, fight with the fury of someone defending their final home. Suebian axes clash against Visigothic shields. Horses neigh, men scream, the earth turns to red mud. But the Visigothic formation is disciplined, almost Roman. It advances like a slow, unstoppable machine. By nightfall, the Suebian army is broken. King Miro dies shortly after. Some say from combat wounds. Others say poisoned by traitors in his own court. The final blow comes 3 years later, in 585. The Suebian successor, a noble named Audeca, tries to resist by taking advantage of internal wars in the Visigothic kingdom. But Liuvigild returns with more force than ever. This time, there is no mercy. The Suebian cities are taken one after another. Braga falls, Lugo falls, Tui falls. Odeca is captured, stripped of his royal garments, forced to wear a monk's habit, and sent into exile in a monastery where he will die forgotten by all. The Suebic Kingdom, after almost 200 years of existence, ceases to exist. Its lands, its treasures, its churches, and its warriors become part of the great Visigothic Kingdom. For the first time, almost the entire Iberian Peninsula is under a single crown. The chronicles describe heartbreaking scenes from those final days. Suebian mothers hiding their sons in the forest so they wouldn't be drafted into the Visigothic armies. Priests burying gold chalices in orchards so the conquerors wouldn't melt them down. Elders who preferred to throw themselves off cliffs rather than watch the enemy enter their villages. But there were also other scenes. There were Suebian nobles who opened the gates of their cities without a fight in exchange for keeping their lands. There were bishops who negotiated the peaceful surrender of entire dioceses. There were warriors who switched sides, swearing loyalty to the new king in order not to lose their place in the world. The conquest, like almost all conquests in history, was as much human as it was military, made up of heroism and betrayals, of glorious deaths and shameful pacts. And here arises one of the great paradoxes of this story. Although the Suebic kingdom disappeared, its people did not go extinct. The Suebi mixed with the local population. Their surnames were transformed. Their blonde blood was diluted into generations of Hispano-Romans. But something of them remained forever. It remained in the stubborn and silent character of the Gallaecians. It remained in certain words of the language still spoken today in the peninsular Northwest. It remained in the special devotion to certain saints. It remained in the monasteries they themselves founded high up in the mountains. The Suebi lost the war, but they won cultural eternity. But this story does not end with the sword. It ends with the cross, because Liuvigild, despite all his military greatness, failed to fulfill his greatest dream. He wanted all his subjects to embrace Arianism, his version of Christianity, and he clashed over this even with his own son Hermenegild, who had converted to Catholicism. The civil war that broke out between father and son was one of the most tragic of those centuries. Hermenegild rebelled in Seville. He received support from the Byzantines and the Suebi before his final downfall, but he was defeated, imprisoned, and according to tradition, assassinated for refusing to renounce his Catholic faith. Today, he is venerated as a saint. His father, Liuvigild, died shortly after, in the year 586, with a broken heart, knowing that his other son, Reccared, would abandon Arianism and finally unify the kingdom under the Roman Catholic faith in the year 589. That was the true spiritual birth of Spain. The scene of Hermenegild's martyrdom, according to the chronicles of Pope Gregory the Great, took place in a damp dungeon in Tarragona on Easter night of the year 5025. They sent him an Arian priest to give him communion so he would publicly renounce Catholicism. Hermenegild refused. The emissary returned to his father with the news, and Liuvigild, the texts say, gave the order with a breaking voice, with tears in his eyes, but he gave it nonetheless. A warrior entered the cell with an axe, a single blow to the head, a crown lost, and another one in heaven, according to the faith of those times. It is told that Liuvigild wept for days, locked away in his palace in Toledo, refusing to see anyone, not even his wife Goiswintha. Some historians believe he died more from that grief than from any physical illness. And Reccared, the surviving son, did in a few years what his father did not dare to do. He convened the Third Council of Toledo in the year 589, and there, before bishops gathered from every corner of the peninsula, before Visigothic nobles dressed in their finest, and before representatives of the old Suebic Kingdom of the North, the official conversion of the Visigothic Kingdom to Roman Catholicism was solemnly proclaimed. It was a historic moment. For the first time, Goths and Hispano-Romans shared the same faith, the same altar, the same liturgical language. For the first time, there were no victors and vanquished, but a single people under a single cross. That day, in the naves of the Cathedral of Toledo, a candle was lit that would never be extinguished. That day, the first Spain was spiritually and officially born. Stop for a moment and think about all this. The Suebi, who seemed the weakest, managed to survive almost 2 centuries in a hostile land. They left behind monasteries, languages, customs, blood. The Visigoths, who seemed invincible, conquered the entire peninsula only to lose it centuries later to another invasion, the Muslim invasion of 711. But between these two peoples, in their battles, in their churches, in their marriages, and in their shared graves, something was forged that no individual king could have created. What was forged was the character of a people, a stubborn, religious, warrior people, capable of the greatest cruelties and the most sublime mercies. A people that was not yet called Spanish, but already breathed as such. And let us not forget the women of those times, those great absentees of official history. The Visigothic queens like the feared Goiswintha, capable of poisoning her own daughters-in-law for religious reasons. The princesses who surrendered their youth in political marriages to seal peaces that never lasted. The anonymous peasant women who hid the wounded, who stitched up injuries, who gave birth under the trees while armies marched by. The nuns who copied manuscripts in infinite silences, saving Latin, Greek philosophy, and the Gospels for the future. Without them, without their silent courage, none of the masculine exploits would have survived oblivion. Spain was also born in the weeping and singing of its women, even if the chroniclers of the time preferred to ignore them. Today, 100 years later, it is only fair to remember them with the same respect given to the warrior kings. When you walk today through the streets of Braga, Leon, Toledo, or Merida, you are not walking on dead stones. You walk on the memory of men who fought with axes and prayed with tears. You walk on the bones of forgotten Suebian kings and poisoned Visigothic queens. You walk on the soil where, drop by drop, in blood and faith, the nation that would one day be called Spain was born. And although official books prefer to begin history in 1492, the truth is that Spain was not born with the Catholic monarchs. Spain was born much earlier. It was born in the roar of a Suebian warrior charging with his axe. It was born in the silence of a monk copying manuscripts by the light of a candle. It was born in the weeping of a Visigothic mother who lost her 3 sons in a single battle. Spain was born between the years 476 and 586 AD. And nobody had ever told it to you like this. If this story has moved you, if you have felt for a moment the coldness of steel, the heat of the bonfire, or the weight of a stolen crown, I ask you for one last favor. Leave your comment down below. Tell me what moment moved you the most. Was it the cunning of Remismund? Was it the silent conversion by Martin of Braga? Was it the final ride of Liuvigild? Or was it the martyrdom of his own son, Hermenegild? Every comment of yours tells me what kind of stories you want to keep hearing. And if you are not yet officially part of this journey, now is the time. Subscribe to the channel right now. It won't cost you anything, and to me it means everything. Turn on the notification bell so that no chapter of this saga, no lost king, no forgotten warrior, no epic battle escapes your radar. If you want to take another step and directly support this work, become a channel member. As a member, you will have access to exclusive content, extended videos, detailed recreations, and a personal thank you in every production. Your support is the spark that keeps the torch of memory burning. Because remember something, peoples who forget their history are condemned to disappear into the fog of time, but peoples who know it and honor it walk with their heads held high, knowing where they come from and what their ancestors fought for. The history of the Suebi and the Visigoths is not just the history of Spain, it is the history of how a new order can be born from absolute chaos. It is the history of how 2 enemy peoples, after 100 years of war, ended up mixing their blood, their faith, and their dreams in a common land. It is the story that proves no nation is born in a day, but rather is forged blow by blow, prayer by prayer, generation by generation. May the roar of the Suebian warriors and the gallop of the Visigoths resound forever in your memory. May you know, every time you hear the word Spain, that behind those 6 letters there are centuries of blood, faith, courage, and resistance. May you know that every cathedral, every castle, every small mountain village that exists today was made possible because 15 years ago, blonde men came down from the Germanic forests and refused to disappear, because other men further south dreamed of a united kingdom and paid for that dream with the blood of their own sons. Because anonymous women, nameless monks, and faceless peasants decided, generation after generation, that this land was worth it. And may you also know that you, by listening to this story until the very end, become one more of the guardians of that memory. Thank you for being here, thank you for listening, and see you in the next chapter of this saga, where I will tell you what happened when the Visigoths, now masters of all Hispania, faced the greatest challenge of their existence, the arrival of Islam. But that is another story. Until then, take care, keep the flame of knowledge alive, and never, ever forget who you were, who you are, and who you can become. M.